Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla, let's go over the market and figure out what is happening, what happened this week. A pretty astronomical week, I think we can all agree on. And yeah, essentially what we can expect, well, moving forward into next week. So with all that being said and done, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to hit the like button. It does help a lot. I would appreciate it. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And again, my membership section on YouTube is live for just $2.99 a month per month, obviously. You get access to all my intraday thoughts, posts, updates, technical analysis, etc. throughout the day, every single day. And people have been obviously very happy. I mean, at least it seems like people have been very happy overall. Especially during the earnings when I was constantly talking to people and essentially telling them not to try to worry too much, right? Things are looking better than they are worse, even though everyone else seems really, really bearish. And well, some people clearly were happy about that. Anyway, if you're interested, the link is below. But let's just jump into the video. Let's talk about Tesla stock and let's see what the hell happened and what we can expect. So Tesla closing the day, unfortunately, down in the red ever so slightly, down about 1.11%, closing at $168.29, which unfortunately compared to the market is going to be a pretty decent, maybe not decent, but definitely an underperformance, right? With the market, for instance, QQQ up a nice solid 1.5%, while SPY's up a solid percentile. So, definitely a bit of an underperformance there. But with that being said, now let's take a look as to what's happening. So let's go over to the daily. Let's start with the daily here. So here's the situation, right? So I talked about yesterday how, I personally wouldn't be surprised if we do get a rejection around this, low-ish 170s, right? This 172, 173 region. Why? Well, because simply we have this massive volume profile. We came back up to it, we tested it, and now we're rejecting it, right? And that's kind of what I was saying. Now, the main question is, how hard do we potentially reject from there? Because there is a chance that this rejection that we so far have seen that's the only rejection we get, and we actually go even higher from here, potentially to retest that very crucial 180s level, which in my opinion wouldn't be impossible. We'll talk more about that as to why that may be the case on the 4-hour chart, but this is kind of the general picture I'd want to show you, right? This main volume profile that is rejecting us, and we are not there yet, but on the daily we are starting to ever so slightly get kind of close to just entering overbought territory. Doesn't mean we are yet, and doesn't mean we still can, but go higher in terms of actually entering overbought territory. We're not there yet, but we are closer to it than we're not, essentially is what I'm trying to say, especially compared to when we were just very oversold all the way here, that I've been saying for quite a while, that we were just very, very, very oversold, right? On top of that, the volume today was obviously pretty low volume, so we are kind of if we consolidate, the quote unquote best case scenario here is if we essentially pretty much just go sideways. If we just go sideways, maybe slightly down to maybe worst case, let's just say 160s, right? On lower volume, this would be really good. And that to me will tell me that we're just simply consolidating and pretty much building up momentum for that next move up, probably to 180, right? That's what that would tell me. But we'll see if that happens to be the case. But so far, it seems to be the case with this, very low volume, or lower volume, I guess I should say, compared to most other days, or at least the recent days on this, I guess technically a red day. So that's that, right? Stochastic, obviously, like we said, flipped bullish, and it's still, looking pretty bullish, right? We have the MACD that flipped bullish on the daily chart, which is great. The RSI is honestly looking pretty decent in my opinion. I think the RSI, as long as it holds around these 50-ish level, RSI is looking pretty decent. Like overall, the stock is looking decent, right? We had this massive breakout on this massive, super long-term, monthly downtrend that we did break out of, right? I think the lowest, the quote unquote, honestly, the worst case thing that can happen on the daily chart for Tesla in terms of a quote unquote correction, if you will, from this earnings rally would be a drop down back to somewhere in the mid 150s. I think that is the worst case scenario. I don't think we'll go much lower than the 150s, maybe the lower mid 150s, maybe the lower 150s, right? I'd be surprised if we go much lower than that, if even that, honestly, right? So keep that in mind. If things do kind of hit the fan, if you will, and if the market does decide to correct off of this potential dead cat rally, right? I do expect Tesla to first target, honestly, probably the lower 160s, but I wouldn't be surprised to see mid to low 150s as well. But I'd be surprised if it goes much lower than that, if even that. So that's the main way I'm looking at it overall right now on the daily, right? Keep in mind the mean reversion, if you will, on the daily is sitting somewhere around, which is pretty much the 20-day moving average, is sitting somewhere around that 162-ish level. So keep that in mind. I do want to jump very quickly to the weekly time frame. Now, this is where I might actually need your help, right? This is the part I'm not actually 100% sure about. I'm pretty confident about it, but I'm not 100% confident. And that's going to be, of course, this situation we find ourselves in with these two weekly candles. So let's take a quick look at them right here, right? This weekly candle that just closed this week, of course, and naturally the week prior to, right? So I talked about yesterday how we could potentially set up a bullish engulfing candle where essentially this candle engulfs the previous candle. Now, the thing I'm personally not sure about, that maybe people in the comments are more acute, if you will, or knowledgeable in this sense, are we did not close this weekly candle above last week's high, which, like I said, was about 170.69, right? We did technically tick above it, and the wick did technically go higher, but we didn't close higher. So does a bullish engulfing candle have to encapsulate the previous candle with the literal candle itself, or do the wicks count as well? As far as I'm concerned, the wicks do not count. And because the literal candle, the white part of it, the literal candle itself, did not close higher than yesterday or last week's high, which is that 170.69, and essentially pretty much anywhere above that level, it's not a true bullish engulfing candle. But I'm not sure if the wicks count, because if the wicks do count, then this is still a bullish engulfing candle. I'm not sure if it does. I don't think it does, though. I'm going to go ahead and on a limb here and say it does not, but we'll see. However, with that being said and done, we still of course have the weekly stochastic flipping bullish. More convincingly, you can see for the longest time it's been trending pretty much scraping the bottom of the barrel for quite a long time, but no real convincing breakout. It was kind of close over here. This was back when we had that initial bear flag. Remember that a long time ago, right? But even then that collapsed. But this is probably the most convincing crossover on the stochastic we have had ever since this drop has officially occurred, and we've been kind of getting destroyed by this drop overall. So that's important to understand, right? This is a pretty, convincing, I would argue, a crossover. RSI is looking pretty decent. MACD is finally looking like it's basing once again. We'll see if this happens to be the, situation where we can finally actually base, which is good to see. The volume on the weekly candle on today's, pretty bullish looking candle, regardless, just massive buying pressure on good volume as well. Higher volume than the vast majority of the recent weeks, right? Ever since, I think this was like the earnings drop right here, actually, right? Pretty much ever since last earnings, yeah. It's the last earnings, we had a massive drop on high volume, and obviously we continue the trend downwards. Now we have a massive rise and rally on earnings, also on good volume. Pretty much the exact same volume, actually, believe it or not. Pretty much almost the identical volume that we had on the previous earnings that dropped us and continued to bleed downwards. So this could be a potential reversal signal as well. So keep that in mind. That's important to understand. That's crucial information potentially. So that's good. Now, the one thing I do want to jump into very quickly is going to be the weekly time frame. Oh, no, sorry, the 4-hour time frame. The 4-hour time frame is what's kind of important here, and there are some conflicting things, if you will, I guess. I don't know how else to put it, things on the 4-hour. So first and foremost, right, like I said, on the daily, we have this volume profile that has rejected us, right? Sitting at about this 172, we'll say roughly-ish level, right? It has clearly rejected us, as you can obviously see, vividly on the screen here. Now, the thing that's interesting is two things. First, again, that rejection, technically bearish, can obviously signal a potential mini correction moving forward, right? Potentially, like I said, 160s, maybe even the mid-ish 150s. When I say 160s, I mean like literally like close to 160 itself. Also, if we bring out pretty much my favorite indicator, right, the band's regression, we are overbought. The 4-hour is unquestionably overbought. And right now, a quote unquote reversion to the mean, if you will, which is what we did on the daily from earnings, would be essentially a move back down to about 158. I don't think it'll happen right away. So if this happens, let's say over the next couple of days, let's say Tuesday, maybe Wednesday, right? It'll pretty much most likely meet us somewhere in the middle, which will be pretty much around 160. That wouldn't surprise me. Like that is a possibility. So keep that in mind, right? That is a very real possibility, especially with the stochastic and technically overbought territory. So it hasn't flipped bearish yet, but the stochastic is obviously in, overbought territory. So could be a little bit of sign of, time to kind of relax a little bit, time for a little bit of a cool off, right? So those are the things and the signs, if you will, that are pointing to a potential pause here, maybe some sideways correction, maybe a slight bleed downwards to about 160s correction, something like that, right? Those are the signals that are telling me that. But the one thing that's kind of contradicting that, and the one thing that's making me a little bit honestly uncertain to be really confident about that, even though I still think that's more likely than not, is going to be the fact that, we did break out of this weekly 4-hour descending wedge right here, this, these red lines here. We did break out of it, right? We broke out of it yesterday. And today, what happened, right? I talked about this yesterday too. I said how we can come back and retest this breakout. And that's exactly what happened. We came down rather, and pretty much retested it almost to perfection. Keep in mind, my lines aren't drawn to like the literal, pixel perfect, it's just a rough depiction, of course, but it's close enough. And you can see even this is close enough to really show you that, yeah, it came down to retest that breakout. And in theory, this can be enough to absorb any selling pressure and continue upwards not too long after, potentially even as soon as Monday or Tuesday. So this is the one thing that's conflicting me, because there are signs pointing to me that, it's time to cool off. It's time to give a slight correction. Worst case, maybe sideways best case sideways correction in terms of actually having a correction, right? Worst case, like I said, 160s to mid-ish 150s. But again, with such a breakout and so far a pretty damn clean retest, it is making me kind of question that a little bit, which is why I do have some cash secured puts, and I have a cover call against my shares, but I have more cover calls ready to sell because I'm not super convinced that this correction needs to start just yet for Tesla, and we can potentially still head higher. I need to see a little bit more movement here from the stock to get a better idea as to, do we actually move downwards to 160s, maybe 155s, or do we bounce off this retest and make our way up to potentially 177s to 180s, maybe even 182 to get that ultimate retest, which is probably the most important thing. Like I said many, many times, right? Tesla needs to break above this kind of 182-ish, we'll say, level to really set not only a fresh higher high, but ultimately after that, come down and set a fresh higher low at some point. That's what I want to see from Tesla. I want to see a higher low and I want to see a higher high. Once this can be accomplished, I think that, there's a very solid argument to be made that this is the bottom, at least for the short to medium term, at least for that, and at least to give us probably enough breathing room to get pretty darn close, if not to this retest at the top of this trend line on the weekly time frame, which will be putting us somewhere around that $230 level, right? This red line all the way near the top, similar to how we came all the way down to the bottom in Tesla, this green line almost to perfection. Same concept, but just to the opposite side now. So, if we break 180, I do think that opens up a very, very real possibility of moving our ways to the 230s within the next, month or two or something like that. So that's going to be the main thing I'll be looking at. Ultimately, if I had to say, right, Tesla definitely looks good. Like in my opinion, it's still too early to say for sure the bottom is in. Like I said, the 180s is kind of that level where I can more confidently say that the bottom is like 95% in, at least again, short to medium term. But the fact that we closed above 160, the weekly candle above 160 is good. It's a very good sign, which is why I also wouldn't be surprised if we do come back down to 160 to retest that, just as like a way to really solidify that breakout back above 160, which would be really, really good. And again, don't forget, we can still potentially be setting up, on this 1 hour time frame, an inverted head and shoulders here, which will be obviously very bullish if this actually were to occur. And of course, we might potentially also be setting up a much larger head and shoulders pattern on the 4 hour, for instance, which will look something like this, where we have the left shoulder right over here. We potentially have the head right here. And then of course, if we make our way up to about this, actually, I don't want to, let's do it on the daily. It might look better on the daily. Yeah. The daily chart is a little bit more cleaner here, but did I move this back? I think I moved this back. I don't know why it's up there. It should be somewhere like around here-ish. Here we go. Beautiful, right? But this makes more sense. It was confusing me. I'm like, why is that line up there? Something's really strange here. But ultimately, we have the left shoulder here. We have that massive head here. And then potentially, if we do break out above 180, I think 200 is next. Most likely rejection, come back down, set up the right shoulder for this much larger head and shoulders pattern, right? And then we move up even further. So, it can look something like this. And this is the larger one. The smaller head and shoulders would be something like this, move back down or whatever, right? And then we move up here, make this head and shoulders and move up. And that smaller head and shoulders would be looking something like this. So it looks messy, but hopefully, the idea and the rough picture and depiction of it is, obvious and, clear, I hope. So yeah, that's kind of the main things I'm looking at right now. So yeah, let me know what you think down below. Ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed this commentary, if you enjoyed my analysis, especially during this earnings week, definitely, would appreciate a like on the video. That would be, well, Elon just replied to a post saying, what a retard. And I literally mean literally that. Let's take a look. While we're here together, let's take a quick look at it. Let's take a look at this. Dustin Moskovich has called Facebook Enron and said that Elon Musk will go to jail. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Elon Musk with what a retard. Alrighty then, a good start to the weekend, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like we're going to be coming back down to 160. But yeah, anyway, so we'll see. I need to see a little bit more clarification on that. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. Definitely check out the members link down below for just $2.99 a month. I would love to have you here. People are, overall very happy. It seems like, maybe people in the comments can, help testify, maybe if they like it or not, the members section so far. But yeah, people seem to be happy from my experience and from what I'm seeing. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you have a great weekend. And of course, I'll see you on Monday. So until then, peace.